Welcome to the first in our Inspire series of webinars and interviews. I've had the pleasure of interviewing Sean Dyche, manager of Burnley Football Club, full of wisdom, full of ideas on football and many other things. I hope you enjoy. Sean, as I said, thank you so much for giving me this time today. I've got loads of questions from pupils and parents. But the first one I want to ask you is just how are you finding this really strange time that we're in at the moment, this lockdown?
Well, to be honest, other than the obvious, which is the danger of it to everyone, I've got elderly parents, so other than that side of things, for me individually, it's not too bad. I live in two places, so I work away and live in Northampton, but work in Burnley and kind of live there part-time.
Yeah.
So I've been back with the family for a few weeks now with the kids and stuff, and my kids are 15 and 17.
Okay.
So I don't get to spend that much time with them. So actually, other than the social element, because I've not been able to socialise, I haven't been able to see my parents properly. Then it's not been too bad at the moment. I wouldn't want it to go on forever, but at the moment I've been catching up with stuff that I can't do normally, and a bit of quality time with the kids and the wife. So so actually it's not been too bad so far, but I know there might be further to go. So.
And what about in terms of you managing your team when they are a long way away? Are you you maintaining that contact and managing them in some way remotely?
Yeah, kind of. The idea was that we pre-framed it really as being like a training break. And once the news came that this was going to happen.
Okay.
So we told them to have 10 days downtime, and then once they'd had some downtime, then it was a plan to start slowly building up their fitness, or not building it up, topping up, I should say. And then now we've enhanced that again by adding in their GPS. So they've got little GPS systems they can carry in a vest, and therefore from a distance we can remotely track on what they're doing. So we're building back up now, kind of into when hopefully the training period will resume before the season resumes, and then we'll finish off the season. So that's the plan. And then just stuff like this, Skype and FaceTime and Zoom and Microsoft Teams and all them things that you use nowadays or I've certainly learned about in the last.
I was going to say, did you have all that knowledge before this, or have you acquired those skills on Zoom and Teams recently?
No, I mean the usual stuff, because I've got 15-year-old and 17-year-old, as I said, so the usual stuff, FaceTime, text message, email, but not really so much Zoom and Microsoft Teams and stuff like that. So that's been refreshing, little things like that, stuff that I haven't used before. I've quite enjoyed some of it. And introduced FaceTime to my parents who are not that savvy with stuff like that. So, that's been quite interesting seeing them on FaceTime. So, it's all these little quirks that sometimes you overlook, and they are useful tools, I've found. So I'll certainly use them more in the future, I think.
Yeah, okay. And what about, you're keeping an eye on your players and how they're training and all of that. What about sort of their well-being? And have you got players who live on their own, players who obviously will have families? You must have a real mixture there.
Yeah, we have got, modern sort of top-level football, most of football actually, but top-level football. We have got specialists on hand if needs be, from a distance obviously, but we've got a team psychologist who is available to the players. We've got obviously sports science and sports medicine and conditioning, dietary support. So there are a lot of support avenues they can use, other than their own teammates, of course. The things when you're a team and you spend a lot of time with each other, you do. There's always a couple who you branch out to a little bit more personally. So they've got that as well. And my time with them is probably quite distant, really. I had a Zoom call with them the other day, but it was only really to say hello. I can assure you, when you're the manager, they don't want to spend too much time with you. They certainly don't want to be chatting to you every 2 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I'm in a bit of a similar position, because I've got all these pupils who are scattered all over the country right now, more than just in the UK, and it's sort of keeping in touch without being too full on, but making sure they know that we care, and again their well-being and their mental health is whether they're actually here or at home. It's mixed. So, but because
I think the one thing is sure that we all, even when you're young, you do have a choice of how to use your time. So,
you do.
I think mental health is a very sort of it's a subject that's come up more and more over my lifetime.
Absolutely.
But I think there's still some positive things you can be doing at the moment. first, one of the obvious ones is the feel good factor of keep fit. Doing a bit to keep fit, the endorphin release that you get from that. And my daughter's certainly found that over the last few weeks. She's certainly got more into getting out on the bike and jogging and stuff like that. So still think there's elements where you can, use different skills than maybe you have done before.
Yes,
to get that kind of feel-good factor, as well as distance learning, as well as sharing a lot of time with your friends on FaceTime and Zoom, as we've discussed. So there's certainly more avenues open than if this would have happened 30 years ago, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you about your childhood. When you were growing up, one of the questions I've had from some of the pupils is, who were your inspirations? Who were your role models? And did they have an influence on the career you ultimately followed?
I think growing up in the 70s, there was lots, really. I mean, the football side of things speaks for itself. It was the dominant era of Liverpool and Kenny Dalglish and famous players, Graham Souness, people like that, and Bruce Grobbelaar, and winning in Europe and all things like that. Yeah. And then outside of that, I'm always obviously keen on lots of sports, but fortunately, actually, what came together just recently, I managed to meet Brendan Foster. So when I was young, for your pupils, not many sort of remember people like him, but he was a sort of leader of the England pack of runners that I remember, middle distance runners, and then became Cohen Ovett. Yeah. And this kind of challenge between them was big news across the country. Yeah. And then came Steve Cram. So I'd always had a bit of an eye on them sort of people and the amount of effort they'd put into what they do and the discipline, the dedication it must take to be as good as they were. So I think as a youngster, it wasn't just football. There was lots of sportsmen at that time. Daley Thompson was another fantastic athlete. So there was a lot of big name. Yeah, and sport was really strong at that time in this country, as you know. So, I think there was a lot of different influences. And it was a time when families, we had 4 channels. So if the Olympics were on, everyone would be watching the Olympics. So, you really got it sort of force-fed to you. And I learned a lot through that period, probably more when I reflect back actually on life than at that moment. But certainly a lot of influence from sport, a lot of the messages behind sport, the discipline, the dedication, the belief, the trust, the honesty, the respect, all of them things were kind of flooded at you quite a lot when I look back. And there's certainly things that I've, influenced me as I grew older. Yeah.
And what do you think about the role of footballers as role models themselves now? Do you think they do a good job on the whole?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is it's a media generation, so bad news sells, unfortunately. So, nothing of the real heavy positives that footballers do. It doesn't seem to sell as well as the negatives. So, probably a 5% window of footballers misbehaving or not doing the right things gets blown up as if it's like 100% all of the time. It's just clearly not the case. So I think footballers have a little bit of a raw deal. There are times when they bring that on themselves, quite obviously. So there's a time and a place where they shouldn't be doing certain things. But a lot of the good work they do often gets misrepresented and swept under the carpet a little bit. But that is the modern world. Bad news sells more strongly than it ever did sell.
Yeah, absolutely. I was doing my research and I saw an interview that you did, I think it was on Match of the Day, about diving and the number of players who seem to, fall down too quickly. And what interested me about it particularly was that you said you seem to be the only manager to actually talk about it. But when you watch it, you see it a lot and everybody knows it happens. And that's how a footballing world.
It's a strange thing. I mean, the thing is, the Premier League's an incredibly powerful brand worldwide. When we go to the meetings in the summer, they give you some figures, and these are approximations, but there's kind of 7.8 billion people on the planet, and 4.8 billion tune into the Premier League at some stage or another. So that's the power of it. And I just think that, I've got a son who plays football, and when he was growing up, the amount of children I see diving all over the place, I just think it should be stopped. There are some fine lines between gamesmanship and diving. There is a difference. In all sports, there's always gamesmanship. There's always a way of getting an edge on an opponent. So that's fine. That's in all sports. But when it's blatant, then I think it should be removed from the game. I think it's bad for the game. I think it's bad for the image of the game. And it's certainly bad for children growing up in a way that's become acceptable now. So not many will listen, unfortunately, because because jobs rely on football matches, and people do get an advantage from going down too easy cheating. So anyway, I'll keep banging the drum the best I can.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about the expectations you have of your players on and off the field? Do you sort of set rules for how you expect them to behave? Are you a stickler for that kind of thing?
Yeah, there's a certain standard I think is appropriate.
Yeah.
With the younger players, when I was a youth team coach, I used to say to them, when you become a professional footballer and you fill in your passport, it actually says professional footballer.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be the footballer. Everyone wants the trophies, the medals, the cars, the whatever it is, the house, whatever.
Yeah.
But the professional side of things is the thing you can't forget. And there is a professionalism that is important both on and off the pitch. So without harping on about it, we do set certain standards. We do set certain codes that I think are important. You won't see a Burnley player with cans on their ears when they're getting interviewed. You won't see them with one sleeve turned up and the other one down, and their hat on backwards and all that.
Okay.
It's just not for me. There's a time and a place in their personal life and their private life. They're more than welcome to do whatever they wish.
Yeah.
And they're part of what we stand for as a team. Then I think, they're slightly old-fashioned values, but I personally think they're still very important. So therefore, they're there to be stood by.
It's a shame that they are old-fashioned, but I know exactly what you mean. It's the sort of thing my grandmother would say, get your hat on the right way around and take those earplugs out of your ears. And how do you get buy-in from your team, from your squad of players, to get on board with that kind of approach? How do you think? Because you are successful with it, but how has that happened?
Well, mostly we explain it to them, the reasons for it. I try and explain everything that we do. That way, there's no sort of umming and ahhing. We do take a lot of feedback, though. We do. There's negotiables and non-negotiables. Certain things are non-negotiable, but there's a lot of negotiables. Okay. So I give them the chance to buy in by saying, look, there's other things we can talk about, and they often win, with other things. But there's certain standards. It might be things like I'll ask them about travel, which way, there's many different options now. Because we're quite a long way up north, sometimes we fly, train, bus. What would they prefer? Hotels, foodstuffs, and we get regular feedback, is it good enough? Is there things we could change? Training time, sometimes I say, look, this is a plan, what do you think? Okay. So there's a lot of negotiables, and I'm very good with family and stuff like that. If they've got certain things that are important, then they come and see me. I said, yep, no problem. Sure. So there's a lot of negotiables, but there's certain structure and certain key core values that I think are important. Yeah. So therefore, usually we get buy-in, and sometimes if we, they come and see me and we have a chat about it, and then we decide that I was right, obviously.
Of course, always. So, what about the difficult, challenging characters that you might have come across in your career? One of my colleagues has asked me to mention Joey Barton as somebody who you managed, who was perhaps quite a challenging character. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, well, you'll definitely know from what you do in education that, sometimes people just want to be heard, and sometimes you can give them a platform to be heard, and then they feel a bit better about whatever that situation was. Yeah. And so I certainly don't dominate people. People probably think I do. I don't. But Joey's actually, he's an interesting character, Joey. He's life educated. His academia wouldn't have been that high, but he's very, very educated in life, and he's very sharp in life. So we had a good chat about the reason we do things, why we do things. I assured him of the professional standards we've had, and deep down, he does search for that. He does want that. Yeah. The biggest thing of all, really, was people had said to me, how are you going to manage him? I said, I'm not going to manage him. He's 32 years old. I said, he's not a child. I said, I'm going to offer him advice that I think is important. If he chooses to take that advice, that's really brilliant, and he'll get on great. If he chooses not to, then I'll say goodbye, I'll shake his hand, and I'll kick him out of the building. And I said it was quite simple, that kind of conversation. But joking apart, and by the way, it was that conversation. Joey's one of them, he's very strong in his manner. You can speak to him very bluntly and very abruptly, and he doesn't feel offended. No, straightforward, straight talking. Yeah. He'll just go, okay, fair enough. And we acted on brilliant. We still do. I think people appreciate that straight talking more than I think a lot of us think, and we all skirt around issues, but actually just being direct and but compassionate, it works, doesn't it? Well, I think there's a fine line between, I could change from the era of getting told to do things. Then came the kind of guided discovery of learning, where we're offered things. Yeah. And then it became a feedback where the feedback was more powerful than the message. And then I thought, hang on a minute, we're going into dangerous territory here.
Yeah.
And I think it's just beginning to maybe come around a little bit again now, where you can be, as long as you use good terminologies and, you know, good tonality in your voice, you can more or less tell anyone the truth of anything.
Yes.
Now, once you work people out, you might go slightly higher with the power in your voice, slightly lower with the power in the voice, slightly higher with the power of your words, slightly lower with the power of your words, but you can still tell the truth.
Yeah.
So the truth for me always wins. I never lie to players unless it's something that I can't tell them, you know, just because of the business we're in. But generally, I tell them the truth about whatever they ask me to give them.
Yeah. You and I are very similar jobs. You know, we should maybe swap roles for a week or so, Sean. When all this is done, I'll take over Burnley FC, and you can take over Framlingham.
Well, I'm sure there's some twists in both of our roles.
I think so. But I've got a question from a player, from a pupil here, who has asked, what were the main challenges for you moving from being a player to being a manager? So what would you think about?
Well, the obvious ones, I was ready for it. So I played for 20 years from 16 to 36, and professionally from when I was 18, as in first team football.
Yeah.
So I was ready for it. When it came to me, the main thing for me was giving something back to whoever I worked with as a coach. And that was my main driver. It still is, really.
Yeah.
You know, in first team world, it's slightly different. We've got to win, because if we don't win enough, you're out of a job.
Yeah.
But in development roles, you can still develop who you're working with. And I'm a great believer in that. So that's really, the transition from playing was built on that, really, was thinking, right, okay, what can I offer the next generation of players that maybe I've learned about myself, about the game, about the profession that I'm in.
Yeah.
Rather than telling them this is how it works, I kind of offer them what I think would be better for them.
Yeah.
To give them an enhanced chance of success than what I had. Like I said, I came from a do this, do that, do this, do that generation where that was it. You did it, or you got dropped, or you got sworn at. You know, it's a change. I'd like to think after a bit more than that. That's for sure.
So I was going to ask you a bit about Brian Clough, because he was one of your managers, wasn't he, when you were a player? Yeah. And I've seen all sorts of documentaries about him. Quite a character, seemingly.
Yes.
Did you learn much from him? When you look back?
I think I was a young pro then, but what you learned was the simplicity of it. A lot of the things we're talking about, a lot of respect, a lot of honesty, discipline, but an enjoyable discipline. There was always flexibility. But you learn the simplicity of what he stood for and what his staff stood for, and almost it was ingrained in the club.
Yeah.
In a different way with Sir Alex Ferguson at Man United, and in a different way with Arsene Wenger, Arsenal. You know, managers who have been at club for a while they often get a way of working and a kind of a sort of almost like a bloodline that runs all the way through the club. And I think we've got somewhat of that at Burnley. And I remember that being at Nottingham Forest, because I was there from a young kid at sort of 13, 14, till I left at about 19, 20. Yeah. So you kind of get a feel for how the club operates. And I think he had that. There was a simplicity to it. But there was still enough detail to make you learn. And one thing that I think is important, by the way, because it's something I reflect on a lot now, is, and it's definitely relevant for students in any sport, academic students, it doesn't really matter. And that's the one thing we had in that generation. So I meant to reference it before. When we were in that told what to do generation, the good thing was, you know, you self-learned a lot, because you only got told simple instructions. You had to self-learn a lot. Yeah. And Nottingham Forest was a place at that time when Brian Clough laid down a way of doing things, but you had to self-teach yourself a lot about football, about how it works. Yeah. So I must say there's a fine balance between the modern feedback generation, which is very important. I mean, you know, coaching and teaching improved dramatically. Yeah. But still that ability to reflect and self-learn, I still think that's a really, really powerful thing.
Yeah. And just to stand on your own 2 feet and make some judgments, make some decisions about, you know, what's the next thing I'm going to do.
Yeah, we've got a young player.
Having it all fed to you,
Yeah, we've got a young player called Dwight McNeil who's doing an excellent job. Yeah. He's played 50-odd games on the trot now in the Premier League from last season through into this season. Yeah. And I was recently asked about coaching him. I said, you know what? I said, I don't really coach him that much. I said, because he's young and he's developing, he's learning. He'll learn as much from the game teaching him as what he can from me. Yes. And sometimes, you know, you can actually take things away from him So I'm leaving him to just explore what it is, and then I prompt him and I join in at the right times, I think, and my staff do. But generally speaking, we're letting him evolve slowly. You know, he's in a very high pressure situation. We're letting that just come out slowly, and he's doing a fine job of it. And there's a delicate measure because any kind of coach or teacher, as you well know, is finding a balance between, I call it push and pull, how hard to push, but how hard to pull back and let them take control of it. So I'm learning about that with myself as well.
Yeah, especially when you see great potential in somebody, you know, and you can see how great they could be, but they maybe not quite getting there.
You can stifle that potential. You know, if you go in too early and too heavy-handed, you can actually stifle their potential to be creative. So I think I'm always monitoring that, you know, with all players, but particularly the younger players, you know, how much to ease back and just, they've got enough on their plate sometimes, you know, they're taking a lot on, some of these high performers, no matter what performance it is, it's academic performance or sports performance, they're taking a lot on, some of these real elite performers. So it's like, let's give them a chance to breathe a little bit. So I've learned that, and I continue to explore that for myself as well. Yeah,
interesting stuff. Can I ask you a bit about Burnley? Because I'm interested to know how the success of your team, how that has impacted on the town itself, because I can imagine that you've got a very, very strong and loyal fan base. And has the success of the team had a positive impact on the town?
Yeah, I mean, when I went there, the town was coming out of some really tough periods. I mean, they've had some tough times up there. They've had social, domestic problems and, you know, all kinds of things as a town, and obviously a high unemployment rate and things like that. So when we got the successes that we've had, it was nice to kind of rub off on the town, if you like. It's the town's very dominated by the football club, and it always has been. And so there's a real strong link between the football club and the people there. And, you know, we managed to keep that connection alive and kind of build it, really. So I've been really pleased with that. You know, it means a lot to the people of Burnley, and excuse me, and it also, even small things like being in the Premier League, because of the power of the league, it actually, they reckon across the town it increases productivity in the town, it increases sales, because there's that talking point, you know, that Burnley talking point. So
it's a good feeling, isn't there, though, in the town?
All that comes with it. All the things that come with it. You know, it's a small town that's recognised. And so I think there is a feel-good factor with what comes with that. And I think fans have done a good job in protecting kind of that feeling of what Burnley is and what it stands for. And they've done a really good job in kind of, you know, taking ownership of their own club, really, as fans. And I think that's been a powerful thing.
Yeah. So how are they fans coping right now, given that, you know, there's nothing's happening, there's no matches,
I mean, players? I can only imagine. I mean, I've done a few Q&As and stuff like this for the fans and on our website and stuff, but I can only imagine they're probably similar to ourselves. They're almost looking at it like the summer break. You know, the only difference is that there'll be a lot of football fans or other sports fans, and of course there's no sport on, or virtually no sport. So so I think there's that. I'd like to think, I mean, we don't know yet. None of us know how we all come out of this, but I'd like to think, just purely on a football side of things, that there might be a little softening of that bitterness that sometimes follows football in the stadiums. I mean, you know, and that a lot of social media now is really, really vile at times, you know, and I wonder whether when it's gone away, people might go, do you know what, I really miss football, and they might be so delighted to just be back in a stadium and back mingling, back seeing players and back watching the football. They might actually remember that it is a good thing, you know, and it's not that it's not there. It's just, I think over the years, it's you know, the sort of nastiness within football has grown a bit, you know, and for fans and social media, and I think maybe there'll be a calming of that. I don't know, because you know, maybe people are looking around the world a little bit and their own lives and thinking, hang on a minute, you know, I forgot how much I'd miss it if it wasn't there. I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see.
It will, and I think it's probably on a wider than just football, isn't it? I mean, I think one of my questions for you was, you know, how do you think society will actually fundamentally change? You know, go back to some of the better ways of interacting once we're out of all of this. You know, appreciating each other a bit more. I don't know.
There might be a bit of care, a slight shift in care and empathy and understanding. Maybe there might be a slight slowing down in all the things we desire materialistically, might soften a bit. It might, you know, some people, not all, chase the dream a bit too hard and maybe just slow down a little bit. I don't mean the dreams of life have been achieving. I mean financial dreams and stretch themselves to the limit, and maybe that will slow down. On the business side, I think lifestyle-wise, I certainly have had a brilliant period of being even more connected with my kids. We're pretty tight anyway, but I found that really interesting. Things that I grew up with, which are not so easy now because we all seem to be busy now.
Always.
But, to sit and have dinner and chat, relax, and dinner taking an hour instead of about 3.5 seconds, it seems, so. And I've enjoyed that because I grew up like that. That was my family life. So I've really enjoyed the simplicity of it. Like I say, if we can find, I think if we can find the blend, where the modern side of our lives and, the fact that we are more busy in varying ways, but if we can find that blend to take her out the sand, even if it was once a day, and sit and converse and get everyone off their gadgets for an hour.
Absolutely.
I do think that would be a valid thing. So even if that's the simplest thing that comes out of all this, then that would be good in my life. That'd be something that I think is a valid change.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a really funny position right now with schools because obviously, and your children will be going through it, no doubt, the remote learning, and which means they're staring at a screen even more than they were before. So that's a bit of a tussle that we have as a school, just to get that balance right,
but possibly staring at it with something coming back rather than staring at Google in I don't know, whatever, earphones or something. So hopefully there's a bit of something going back that's going to feed a bit of the grey matter.
Yeah. Now I've got a couple of questions from parents here that I want to ask you. One of our housemasters, Mark Lavery, wants to know, Peter Crouch was full of praise for the way in which you helped him handle the end of his career. What were your guiding principles through this process?
He just spoke to me about the timing of it and when it was right. I assured him if he wants to carry on that we would have kept him with us if he wanted to do that. I think I just felt that there'd be a lot of doors open to him. He's a good character, everyone knows that. He's a genuine character as well. That is him. What you see is what you get. And I said, look, the timing of it might be perfect. You finished on a real high at Burnley in the sense that he'd come in at an awkward time. When he came in, we were struggling. And the second half of the season, we'd had a fantastic second half of the season. He played a real big role in amongst the dressing room, not so much on the pitch. He'd been more of a cameo player where he'd had moments, but in the group, he'd been excellent. And I just felt that he could have carried on playing for sure. But I don't think he saw himself as a bit part player. And I, at that time, couldn't guarantee him more than that. And then we just spoke about the open-mindedness of what comes next. And I just felt, I said, look, I think you'll have floods of work, whether it mostly media. He's got his books and his podcasts as well, and his stories of his career. And, he just really balanced it out. And I said, look, first things first, there's no reason to make a decision because it was the summer period. So you got kind of, 7-8 weeks. So I said, don't jump to a decision. Things like this are big choices, So, and then he went away and he thought it through. And even right the way through the summer, I was just now and again just giving him a ring saying, look, are you okay? It wasn't saying, are you going to do it or not? It's just saying, are you okay? Are you thinking things through? And in the end, I think so many doors opened in the end. He just thought, right, if I turn my back on this now, in another year's time, he might not be sort of have them opportunities. So I think it was a natural occurrence in the end by so many people were saying, look, we want you to do this, that, and the other. I think, right, okay, now's the time. Really good character, really top character.
So it's basically, having that empathy with him and being straightforward and honest, but supportive.
Career, it's easier for some. I was ready. I'd had 20 years. I was ready. I knew. I've never. People ask me this. I've never ever played a single game of football since I finished playing. Not one.
Right.
I played in the garden with my lad. An actual real game. I've never played a game since because I was ready. I'd had 20 years giving my lot to the game, and I just was like, no, that's me done.
Okay. Interesting.
Others have that thirst to keep playing. I mean, I know players who still playing charity matches and goodness knows what,
you wouldn't do that. No.
Well, I probably couldn't take it now. I'm 48 now, but until I was about, certainly early 40s, I was really fit, and my body was fine. But nowadays, my back's in all kinds of trouble, and my blooming arthritic toe joints. So not so much anymore. But no, some have the thirst to carry on. I think Crouchy did.
Yeah.
It was just so many good things opened up for him that I think he thought, I've got to take it now. And I think he's made a really good decision.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. I'm going to ask you about academies. How important do you feel academies are in acting as that sort of bedrock for a team?
I think they've improved. I think there's, I think they've, in my opinion, there's too much feedback now. I think the academy is for me, at a very young age, should be about fun, should be about enjoyment.
Yeah.
The rewards of the game. In my day, I just wanted to play for England. Now, of course, different motives possibly, which I understand. I'm not against it. I understand it. So there's a thirst and a desire that is slightly different. My thirst and my desire was to enjoy my career and be a football player. I think there's slightly different intentions sometimes. So I think that balance between pure enjoyment and love of the game and the sport, and then that kind of guiding towards being a top professional, let's say, it's slightly out of kilter.
Okay. Yeah.
But the structure of the academies is fantastic now at virtually all levels. I mean, my lad, he's at Northampton Town. They're not giants of football, but there's a really good structure. There's better coaching than there ever was. There's better support. So I must say, I think the structural side and the organisation and the care side and the health and well-being side is very, very good now. I mean, almost fantastic at some places.
Yeah.
I just think sometimes the self-learning side has gone too far. It's almost like feedback, and it's like, just give them a chance to learn for themselves. So I think that's the balance. But generally speaking, I think they're really, real positive for the game with the academies.
Because that leads me to a question from our director of sport, who has asked, do you think that professional academies cast their net too wide and therefore disappoint a higher number of young people who then don't get their contracts? Do you think it does it in that sense? Is it working?
I think the idea is that when they, the academy became so powerful. If you think about it, you're obviously in education, so if you think about it rationally, the idea of the academy is when they started taking academies started taking players away from school sports and Sunday league sports and things like that. The idea of that was actually, if you think about it, based on common sense. If you've got professional coaches teaching you, there's a fair chance that they're going to teach you better than someone who's a Sunday league coach. On the other hand, the thing they forgot is the social side and how vital that is to your learning, I think. The social element of sport is so important for your learning, your development.
Absolutely.
That's where the blend, I think, has gone a little bit off. I'm not sure at such a young age you have to take kids and they can only play for one academy. And and I worry about it. It's a job before it's a job. When you're 16, it should be a job. When you go and play as a scholar, and even then it's kind of like half job, half fun. When you become 18, you're a professional and you're out there. Well, in my case, I was out there playing in front of crowds. Then it really is a job. It's like the feedback generation from 7 years old, little Johnny feels like he's been at work, instead of just running around in a playground playing football. So I think there's a healthy balance that's gone out of kilter, as I said. I think just gone out of kilter. So rather than them spreading the net wide, I think maybe there's a way of making it more of a kind of enjoyable, controlled environment rather than too structured and too feedback driven. A way of just letting them enjoy it, maybe putting them in a safe environment, obviously. But almost throw the ball and saying, throw your jumpers down and go and play for an hour. Particularly at a very young age.
Yeah. Okay. Now then, just a little bit more about you. Have you got ambitions? I mean, one of the questions I've got here is, does Sean see himself managing England one day? I mean, is that an ambition that every manager has anyway, or? Before
I answer that, I've just thought something that I think is important, because I presume, I don't know who this is going out to, but certainly kids and parents, some will look.
Absolutely.
There's one thing I feel really strongly about. I was just thinking then, within any junior level football, and I've said this before on things, but it's just important because it references education. The one thing I'm really feel strongly about is parents going crazy at kids and that. They're screaming and shouting. The thing is, you wouldn't scream at your kid, when they're learning to play the piano.
No.
So sometimes you've got to learn, you've got to learn a bit of just hold your feelings back, hold your emotions back. You wouldn't scream at your kids when they're doing their maths test.
No.
So it's just remember they're learning a skill, and it's a very, very difficult skill as well. Football's a very difficult skill.
But
So
it's like a lot of
sometimes I
things.
just,
Yeah,
sometimes I worry about, I ponder that because my son played and I
yeah,
went around the country watching him and I'd hear some things from parents and screaming like, oh, I'm like, what? I'm thinking, just,
yeah.
I didn't get involved, obviously, because everyone knew what I did.
But
So it's a fair
schools
aspect.
often now have like codes of conduct for parents, on the sideline.
Yeah.
So making it really clear that you must not be yelling certain things, and you mustn't harass the ref either.
Well, they
Um,
are learning. They are learning. They're learning to play
exactly.
a very, very detailed
Yeah.
sport.
Yeah.
It's like,
But
just
I
try
think
and take a
sometimes,
deep breath.
as adults, we try and live our lives to our kids, don't we? And we can sometimes lose the balance, and it go out of kilter, and
Well, I
then
can assure you, I won't be living my life through my kids at maths. Wasn't my strong point. Let's say that.
So have you been involved in a bit of remote learning with your children? Have you been helping them?
I wouldn't say helping them. They helped me. No, I was okay at school, but they're far better than me. They go to Kim Bolton School. You might know Kim
Yeah,
Bolton.
yeah, yeah.
They
I
go
know it
there.
well.
Well, Max
Yeah,
is a scholar now, and
yeah,
he chose to. He could have stayed on education, but he wanted the chance to be a young footballer.
yeah,
But
yeah,
my
yeah.
daughter, yeah, she's there. So she's in old money. She's fourth year, so
Yes.
she's
Okay.
getting ready. The build-up year for her GCSEs next year. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, 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 yeah,
no, I've been prompting them though of the importance of it. That's for
yeah.
sure.
Good, good.
No. I'm certainly feel strongly about education.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can learn. We always say you can learn wherever you are. In a classroom,
Yeah,
outside the classroom. It's like you say about on the pitch, or whether you're watching the game, or wherever you are, you're
yeah,
learning things, aren't you? And that's the important thing not to forget. So in this weird time that we're in, we can still be learning, and there's an awful lot
absolutely.
of different stuff to learn.
A great attitude is everything. A great attitude is everything. Anyway, your question, England
Ah,
manager.
yeah. Tell me about England. Have you got?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know whether you'd want to say anyway, but is it something that you've thought about?
No, I've been asked about it a few times just because obviously, the country at this stage, there was a spell when we went through some foreign managers in our, as
Yeah,
our national manager, but
yeah,
the tides kind of turned back to English managers. Gareth's done a
yeah,
good job, obviously.
yeah.
So I do get asked about it. But the thing is that at this time, it would be a definite no for me.
Okay.
The, the, the challenge is not about the job. The challenge is for your family life. The
Yes. Yeah.
scrutiny you're under spills radically into your family life when you're an England manager. It's bad enough when you're a club manager.
Yes.
When you're an
Yeah.
England manager, it goes around your whole life. And
Yeah.
there's no way I'm going to put my kids through that at this stage.
No.
If I was older and they were older,
Mm.
they'd, I mean, don't get me wrong, they're pretty savvy with it now. They've seen some,
Yeah.
goods and bads, let's say.
I'm sure.
The
I'm
job that
sure.
I do. But I wouldn't want that for them now or my wife. So that for now, it'd be a definite no.
Yeah.
Somewhere down the future, who knows? Because
Mm.
I'm pretty family minded,
Yeah.
and I just think that I can handle what I do because I've been in it all my life. But it
Mm.
doesn't mean they can. So
Yes.
if I was ready or I felt they were ready for that, that'd be different.
Yeah.
The England job is maximum scrutiny all of the time, and
Mm.
a lot of that scrutiny nowadays, as we know, unfortunately, isn't the kind that is fair. I would say.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
when I wouldn't have a problem with it because that's my
Mm.
life. I've known it all my life.
Yeah.
But that spills into your family life, and I don't wish for that on my family at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's quite refreshing to hear is that message actually that family life is very important, and if you've got a strong family behind you, you can come into work every day and you're fine. But when things go wrong with your family, that's when everything crumbles, doesn't it? So
Yeah, and it's not easy. Yeah, and it's a job that is it's scrutinised from all quarters all of the time. So
yeah,
I think, like I
absolutely.
say, sometimes you've got to be, or
Yeah.
I personally think outside of yourself. For
Yes.
me, it
Yeah.
wouldn't be a problem because I'm used to that. But for them, I just think, at this stage, too much too soon. So who knows down the future? Who knows?
Yeah. We'll wait and see. Just tell me the thing about football that has always fascinated me is the money involved. The amount teams will pay for players, and there are teams with loads and loads of money, loads of cash, and then there are other teams with less. And I draw similarities with schools in that sense as well. There are some very prominent schools, and then there's some less prominent ones, all striving for the same thing. And with Burnley, you'll have a smaller budget than Man U, I imagine. So how much do you put the success of a team down to the fact that they've got a load of cash, as opposed to the attitude that's embedded within the team from the manager and the players themselves?
Well, it depends. I mean, it is difficult, and it's getting more and more difficult. You know, quality costs in football. So the best players cost a lot of money.
Yeah,
they earn a lot of money. Forgetting about the rights and wrongs of it, they do for a fact.
Yeah.
So we can only compete to a certain level. What we can compete with is development. We can keep with a side that has got a strong mentality as a team. The organisation of the side, the tactical organisation. So we have to focus on things that are outside of just money.
Yeah.
You know, our kind of financial side, bizarrely actually, in what's gone on now, the club is run so prudently that we're actually secure now. So you've seen all the news about why footballers are doing this, that and the other.
Yeah,
we can make choices. Yeah, we can make choices because the club's on a very, very solid, strong financial footing.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. I mean, safeguarding the future of the club against overspending and possibly getting that spending wrong, because at the end of the day, you're buying human beings. That doesn't mean that it's all going to work. You know, it doesn't mean it's all going to work and it's all going to be magical.
No, absolutely.
It's very
relying on one player as well, putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, sometimes, and they can get injured and you know, loss of form and all sorts. So you know, we make the best of what we can with a group and a group mentality, and it's still development is underneath all that. You know, the consistency of learning, the desire to learn, a great attitude to add to the team and to give everything. And we've done pretty well with that, you know, over a number of years now. So the more, you know, yourself, if you have success with it, the players buy into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So money, it's difficult. It's difficult to win the race, so to speak. You know, for us to win the league would be absurd. I mean, it was madness when Leicester won it, but for us, it's just out the stratosphere, you know. But for us to compete, on the other hand, then we believe we can compete. So therefore, that's what we base our game on being competitive. And so far, it's served us well over the years we've been in the Premier League.
Absolutely.
Money wins the race eventually. You know, if season after season after season. So we will have to continue to stretch our financial thinking. But there are ways of competing outside of just the financial side of the game.
Yeah, and a player won't. Well, I mean, you tell me, but I would have thought, you know, players don't choose a club solely because of the money. You know, there are other motivations, or maybe it depends on what level you're at.
No, there are, but it's the jumps in money, the golfing money. You know, everyone has a price eventually. You know, you can love what you do, you can love the company, the situation, whatever it is in life. But eventually, if someone offers you enough of a shift, no surprise when that starts looking a bit more rosy all of a sudden. You start looking at them and thinking, that looks like it's a bit better than what I thought it was. You know, it's human nature. Yeah, so it depends on the shift between where you are at Club A and what Club B would offer. But no, if it's close, then there are things, you know, that you can do to make sure that your players do stay and they believe in what you do. We think we do a good job of that with our culture and environment, you know, where players want to be part of what we do. And I think we've done well over time with that.
Yeah. Well, look, Sean, I've got one last question for you, which is about coming back to where we started, really, in this whole lockdown. Or maybe it's more than one question, but are there things that you have done during this lockdown period that otherwise you would not have done? And the second part of the question is, what are you most looking forward to once we get out of this lockdown?
Well, I've realised I can jet wash everything in a whole house externally. So I've certainly learned how to jet wash just about everything.
Excellent.
So yeah, on a simple measure that I've learned a lot more. Joking about, I've learned a lot more about technology. You know, I was okay with technology. I've learned a lot more about that.
Yeah.
And just the simplicity of using it more wisely. So that's for sure.
Sure.
I think the things to look forward to, actually, it's not really looking forward, it's reminding myself of the simple pleasures, I think. You know, this has reminded me of the simple pleasures and, you know, things that you take for granted, little things, going to see friends and going, having a barbecue and with friends and going for a dinner with friends and having you know, whatever, going golf and, you know, simple things.
Being with people again, isn't it? Yeah,
mainly it's people focused because... The one thing we all know is there's many material things that we all desire and we get them, and actually you're usually very disappointed when you get it, and within a very short period of time you kind of go, it is what
It wears off, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, you end up still ending up looking for your friends and wanting to spend time with your friends and your family.
Yeah.
I think rather than looking forward to something, it's probably reminded me of the simple things and how important they are.
Yeah.
And other than that, just as I suggested, a bit of social time with friends, and just say, right, the doors are open, come round, we'll have a barbecue and we'll chat and we'll catch up.
Yeah. Well, look, Sean, that has been fantastic, and I feel like we need to open the school of Sean Dyche here because
Not quite sure we're there yet.
There's a lot of wisdom in what you said, and I'm really grateful.
I struggle with the maths bit, right? I struggle with the maths bit. Let's have it that way.
But maybe one day, once we're out of this lockdown, we'll persuade you to come and see us here at Framlingham. That'd be amazing. Okay. But thank you so much for your time. Take care.
No problem. Take care. Bye everyone.